And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Renny Show on this somewhat fine day at some time. Bit of cloud as well. If you're watching us live, please do pop us a comment. We love to carry on the conversation with you in the comments. If you're watching on replay or listening to the podcast, then you can still get in the conversation. Just pop us a message. Hello, Jenny. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm coming to you live from my car in a car park. So never let it be said that a hospital appointment gets in the way of good conversation.
Absolutely. And hello, Chris. Welcome.
Hello. Hello, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
We've been very excited. Those of you who follow us regularly will know that we've been very, very excited about welcoming the magnificent Chris Allen to the Renny Show today, founder and chief change officer at MONTROC Consulting. So we're really delighted to have you in our hot seat. Well, it's kind of a warm seat, not a hot seat.
My seat's warm, so thanks. Absolutely delighted. Thank you so much.
So the premise of the show, as you will know, is that we get to ask you 3 questions, which of course you don't know about. You don't know what they're going to be. So off the cuff, and then you get to ask us one, and we don't know what you've got planned either. So hopefully it will be a fabulously interesting, wildly exciting show. So, Rachel, do you want to kick off with the first question?
Yeah, let's get going. Okay, so our first question for you, Chris, which I will pop up on the screen as well. Why is changing the world of work such a passion of yours?
Wow. Straight in there. Right, first of all, let's focus on some of the last words. Passion, first of all, right? Passion is oft quoted, isn't it? It's people like Simon Sinek who quote passion about this great thing that we've all got to have. The reality is that most of us don't have passion for what we do every day. How sad is that? Do you remember that film with Adam Sandler? Oh, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called, but basically it was a down and out, and then suddenly inherited like this multi-million-pound oil company.
Oh, yeah.
And he basically just gave it to someone else because he's like, well, this isn't my passion, but you're really good at this, so I'll just cream off the top. He understood what his passion was. I don't think people understand what their passion is in life, or it's deep down and they're not doing that because they kind of fell into something from school or uni, right? So yeah. This passion thing is really interesting. I don't think people have gelled with passion, and COVID has had this massive impact on us because we found a little bit more passion. Like we were at home, we got into gardening, skateboarding, walking with my wife, or whatever it is, right? Having a dog, whatever it is. We started to do more of the things at home during COVID than we did before. And I think many people, not everyone, many people started to get more passions, or they started to engage more in their passions. You know, there's not just one, right? And that's one of the reasons why people don't want to go back to the office all the time, boring. But they do that. They want to keep those things going, right? So when people say back to the office 5 days a week, people are like, no. No, I don't know what, I'll take a pay cut or a holiday cut or whatever it is, but I'm not coming back 5 days a week. I might come. I'll say I'll come back 4, which means I'll come back 2, or I'll say I'll come back 3, which means I'll come back 1 a bit. So that's like an adjunct to why is changing the world my passion? Well, I genuinely believe in lifelong learning. I genuinely believe that people should follow their passion and be happy in life. Does that mean I get it right all the time? No. Am I trying still at my age? Yes. And therefore, I've always spent all of my life developing other people, whether that's through sport, particularly in water polo. I could quote you so many instances. I loved being that pivot. And I guess pivot's one of my favorite phrases for what I do for a living, right? When I go in somewhere, I'm just that sort of pivot. Whether I get inserted as a consultant or full-time, whatever it is, I sit there in that influential spot. I don't want to be the boss, but I want to support the boss to do great things. I want to support everyone to do great things. And so I want to change the world by helping people, and we use this phrase in MONTROC, which is live, work better. Essentially, I want you to have a happier, more passionate life. And I can't understand why you wouldn't want that. I think I posted the other day on LinkedIn about the misery of the commute and how Jenny had sparked up my day when we bumped into each other on the train that day. And I think I was probably a bit miserable that day. and she clearly picked me because, for various reasons to sit next to you. But, it's so miserable. I took a train down to Croydon the other day. I was born in Croydon. That's why I'm allowed to take the piss out of people who come from Swindon. And it was really miserable to go to Croydon because it's not a very nice place. And yet there's wonderful people there, from the west to the east and to South Croydon. But so many people are commuting into London are so miserable. I don't think they are miserable people. They're miserable doing that thing. And that's part because they're not finding their passion. It's part because it might be 6 a.m. And I just want to try and help them and organizations do that even 1% better, right? Even 1%, whether that's because they want to learn something, they want to work in a different way, their marriage is terrible or their relationship is terrible, whatever that may be. And we've got various tools that we use for this, right? But I'm waffling about the answer to your question.
No, it's great. I think it gives a fabulous insight into why you do what you do and into what your passion is, which, that was the question. So, yeah, absolutely love it. Thank you.
It's interesting, right? Because, as you know, I spent 20 years in the army, and it was really difficult to transition out of the army, which was, a passion since I was, 12, 11, maybe even before that. I started in the Marines and then ended up in the army, and it was really difficult to give up that willingly give it up. I wasn't kicked out. I resigned after 20 years, and could have stayed for another 15.
Yeah. And
everyone in the military will come out, and similar services, with this massive passion that they've just had, and all of a sudden it's gone. It's not that I don't believe in being an ex-soldier. Once a soldier, always a soldier, right? Or once an airman, always an airman, whatever. But you then have to go and find a new passion, or maybe not, actually. Maybe the passion's exactly the same. You're just going about it in a slightly different way. And I think that's what I have spent a lot of time analysing myself, both through self-analysis and brilliant tools we got taught in the military, and some I've learned afterwards, that if you don't engage in finding out what your passion is, the easiest way to do that is Marcus Buckingham's Love Plus Work. Read that book. It's absolutely fascinating. And his previous book with Ashley Goodall, also amazing. Do the simple exercise of what do you love and what do you loathe in life. It will help you find out your passion. Not the things that are nice. I kind of like doing that. No. I hate doing this and I love doing that. Okay, well, what exactly do you love about it? Why aren't you doing that? What's stopping you from doing that? And we don't live in a utopian world, right? I'd love to be able to stare out of my shower in the morning at the surf and get on my surfboard. But it's just not realistic for the life I've got at the moment. I could do that, but I would upset the other 5 people in my family so much in achieving that then it'd be counterproductive.
Yeah, balance in all things, I guess.
Oh, I don't know about balance.
Oh, that brings us on. That brings us on. You see, to question 2, Chris, which is I've heard a lot about what I would call thriving in life. So passion, doing the things you love, not doing the things you hate. So I wondered if you could share with us a Chris special story, because I know there are many. Oh yeah, that's Chris. That really demonstrates your what thriving means for you.
Oh, blimey, that's a good one, isn't it? What does thriving?
I'm known for my good questions.
Yeah. Okay. I would link thriving to flow. Yeah, if you're happy with flow, it's that state, I would call it. And my great friend Cliff Kimber, if you follow him on LinkedIn, it's an absolute diamond about this, still writing a book about it. It's about this sort of hedonistic state. And I use the word hedonistic on purpose because, hedonism is a form of flow. It's that moment when you realize this is just brilliant. I love this. Again, back to love, right? I love what I'm doing. And therefore, when you love what you're doing, you'll thrive at it. Now, don't get me wrong. If you love what you're doing that doesn't pay you any money, there's a challenge there, unless you're rich. And that's a different story. So what was the exact wording of your question again, Jenny?
It was. Have you got a story that is
Right.
typical, illustrates typical Chris?
Yeah. Okay. And different lives, right? So post-military and in military. Let's go for a military one. Thriving in the military. I was lucky enough to be given command of a artillery battery and parachute artillery, which I took to Afghanistan twice. And the second time, we were tasked to do all this training. We did like 6 to 8 months of training. And the other commanders at my level, the other 3 commanders, clearly brilliant. They've done far better than I have. One of them is a general, blah, blah, blah. All amazing people. And they set about doing this training in exactly the way it says in the book. Like, they did exactly what the book said. Everybody knew what was happening. Really successful. Great. I'm that sort of person. I've read that book, right? As most people haven't. They follow the book, but they haven't read it. I've read the book and thrown it over my shoulder, because for me, thriving is about creativity. It's about being able to use my I hesitate to use the word maverick leadership, but it is maverick leadership.
I love maverick.
Which to me is about just not accepting no or maybe or yes, doing something different. So I took this great body of men and a few women and looked at what we had to do, and I sat them down and said, right, well, all this stuff, there's nothing new here, really. I mean, we've all been there apart from a few new people. We're going to do this differently. How should we do it differently? And I came up with all these ideas. And then we just set about doing things differently. And do you know what? And I know this sounds, again, counterintuitive. We set about having fun. Don't get me wrong. We're training for war. It's really serious. And we all get that. And I get that more than most of, been around the block a lot. And we set about not thrashing people, not spending extra time away from their family, doing the same things, but slightly differently. What happens if we try it this way? Not just out of the box thinking, but just wipe it clean. Who's got an idea of how we should do this in a different way? Well, let's try it. People are like, you can't do that. Why not? And I would say that moment in time when we did that, I had 100 very, very happy soldiers and officers. We deployed with great passion. They trusted me. I trusted them. I felt like I was in flow. I felt like I was in the zone. Don't get me wrong. I was scared stiff, right? I've been in a number of war scenarios and battlefields up until that point, and I'd had enough, and I was scared. Okay, but they were amazing. They didn't need me. I could get on with my job, which was part leadership and part specialist, and that was definitely thriving. But it was the ability to let them do great things without me trying to control them. I was just there to guide and support them and to do the best thing. I absolutely loved that, and I guess that goes back to the passion from earlier. People are clever. Children are clever. We took our 4 kids around India backpacking over Easter. My youngest was 7. I didn't need to control them. They know what was going on. I gave them a lesson on how to pack a backpack, but they knew what was going on, and they were absolutely all over it. So there you go. That's my thriving story.
No, I think, and that's so sings to my experience of you, Chris. And I think that blank, we both talk a lot, don't we, about that having the courage to kind of start with a blank sheet of paper. Absolutely. So not just rearranging the deck chairs. Let's clear the decks. Yep. Let's start again with a clean sheet and just do the what if questions. So that's love it. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how you talked about flow as well, because that's one thing I found when I left the Air Force. I assumed I was coming from a mindset where I needed absolutely everything to be really regimentally structured. And what I realized was, yes, I do thrive on structure, but I also thrive on flow. And when you find your own sweet spot of that, that's magic. That's where the magic happens.
And creativity is so underestimated and underutilized in school, isn't it? It's that thing about we need plans, action plans, we need this, and I get that there's a place for all of those, but never underestimate the incredible power of creativity, because when you unleash that, boy, can we change the world then.
Yeah, and what do we always see? We see people trying to bind creativity. It's a myth that people in the military are rigid and shout a lot. It's not true. No. They are very creative, but they need to be allowed to be.
Yes.
That was and in part that was my demise in the military. Too much of a rogue, too much of a creative person, brilliant in a certain circumstance, but not destined for great things. For their point of view. I really wanted to pick up on something you just said there, Jenny, because I wrote it down yesterday when I was talking to someone else. A brilliant quote by a bloke called Andy Stanley. It says, "Without courage, we simply accumulate a collection of good ideas and regrets." And I really like that. Anyway.
Love that.
Or
Yeah.
we can share that afterwards, because it's a brilliant one, isn't it? I do love a nice quote. Renny, what's your third question?
Ooh.
Okay, so if the world was a blank canvas, okay, blue sky thinking, there's no limitations whatsoever, what's your vision for the future in terms of the world of work? What's the halcyon state?
Okay. First of all, I think human beings need work. That's a broad brush way of saying need work. I think we are sad, and we can fall into despair without. It's part purpose, but it's without doing something meaningful, and indeed without doing something. And I've had some moments in the last 10 years since leaving the military, and indeed times in the military when, I didn't really have enough to do. And it was really, you can see how people get depressed. And it can happen really quickly, especially when you run your own business, a small business, and the high highs and the low lows. I think we must have something to do. If I won millions on whatever it is, the Euro Millions tonight, I wouldn't give up everything. I'd keep doing what I'm doing, but less of it. Or I would just be a bit more picky. I would definitely want to keep doing it. I wouldn't just say, "Oh no, I can't be bothered." I miss it. I miss the interaction with people. So to answer your question, I think people need to work. They don't need to work as much, perhaps, as we previously thought, which was a 7-day week, right? How bizarre. To a 6-day week, 5-day week. We can't have a 4-day week. Why not? Let's face it, most people don't work Fridays anyway, even if they get paid for it. Ooh, controversial. So what? Yeah, I think there must be work, and I also think that it's a really difficult balance. It's one of the biggest questions in the industry, in which I partake in a lot at the moment, which is, well, where is that? And I genuinely believe that is a hybrid scenario. I do think we should get together. Countless studies have shown that we only need to get together for human interaction with our colleagues once a month. Okay. Once a fortnight, I don't know, whatever works. But this notion that you have to get together, you have to be with your team in face to face, went out years ago, and we started working internationally. So, and we can work at home or in third spaces or wherever it is. So I think the world of work in the main, the people at either end, which are slightly different, is a hybrid one. Although I do take the point that 60% of the working population are face-to-face frontline workers. You can't do that job somewhere else, but that doesn't mean you can't garner flexibility. A teacher is a really good example. My wife is a teacher, is a really good example of teachers that have no flexibility. Well, it's not quite true, because actually you have a lot of time when you're not teaching, which is in those holiday periods. You might not necessarily be on holiday, and don't get me wrong, you don't get paid enough anyway, but the flexibility, particularly if you're a caregiver or have children, that's amazing, and you might choose to do that. It works really well. If only we could pay them a little bit better, it would be better. But, so there's flexibility in every job, including frontline workers. You just have to find it, and I think that's my blank canvas for the future way of work. It's to embed flexibility in every role. I had equality and equity in my head there, but I'm not sure we could achieve either.
It can be an aspiration. It's a vision.
I think we would just need to define or be more clear about
what that means.
And how you can get it, because I don't believe it, even in aspiration, I don't believe it's realistic to be equitable and equal in that regard. It's because different roles, different circumstances, it's just not the same. I'm not talking about like pay and stuff like that. That's clearly ridiculous. How can we pay men and women differently? That's utter rubbish. But things like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Love it. Brilliant. Okay, well, it's now your turn, Chris. You can be unleashed and ask us anything you like, I think, and we will answer it. So the floor is yours.
Are you ready for this?
No.
Right, here we are. How would you two work together to win Race Around the World?
Ooh, I love that.
Ooh.
Right, you answer first, Jenny. I'll type it in.
Race it round the world or race across the world? Do you mean? Because
Race Across the World, you know, the TV thing.
Yeah, so I have the advantage of being really good friends with one of the teams from the last series. I love it as a program. I think Rach and I would work really well together because we're often inadvertently on the same wavelength, so we think quite similarly. We're creative, we're flexible. They often have to do, don't they? They often have to do all sorts of weird and wonderful tasks to earn money to kind of pay for a lift or whatever. And I think both of us are really good at getting getting stuck in there. There's almost nothing that we wouldn't have a go at, except I'm not great with heights. That would be a bit tricky for me. But I think we're also really good at communicating. So asking for help, asking for support, talking to people, because the people who are really successful in that series are the people, as ever, who really connect and really talk and who listen, and who take those opportunities and go with the flow.
Yeah, absolutely, I love that. And I something else has just come to mind for me. I think, because we're both confident people, self-belief is not an issue. Although we are human, we all have moments. But I think the confidence that we both have in ourselves, I think we would feed off each other in terms of that. And in line with what you've just said, I think there wouldn't be anything that we wouldn't attempt or find a way round or do some, there wouldn't be any giving up. It would never occur to us to say, oh, look, we just can't. No, there's going to be a way. There's that, that really deep-seated kind of hope and just belief that it's going to turn out okay somehow. It might not look pretty, but who cares? If it works in some way, then great. And I think that's the approach we would take.
And I think also we would find the joy, wouldn't we, in those situations. So whether that's, I remember the last series where my friend was washing a bus. At the end of the day, they got a lift and they had to wash the bus, and his daughter was like, "This is my nail. I don't want to wash the bus. I'm tired. It's been a long day. Why are you washing the bus?" And he said, "Because it's payback. It's reciprocity. That's how the world works. Put gloves on, do whatever you have to do." I think actually at the beginning, I think he said, "You sit down, I'll do your share." But it is that thing about finding the joy in whatever it is you're doing, however, hesitate to use the word menial, whatever the thing is that you're doing, whether it's peeling potatoes, I don't know, for chips in a pizza shop, whatever it is you're doing, we would find the joy in it, however deeply it might seem hidden to others. And I think that stands you in really good stead for keeping going when the going gets tough.
And dealing with adversity when it comes up. Absolutely.
I think that's really interesting that you mentioned these sort of I think it's really interesting that you mentioned these sort of menial tasks. I have a couple of WhatsApp groups with some of my military friends, and some of them we literally text each other every day, which is amazing, and sort of say good morning. And there's all sorts of support through those groups depending on what people are going through. And we're all of a certain age where we're projecting when we're going to stop doing what we're doing. I think most of us, no matter, there's some pretty grand titles amongst us, and people have done some amazing things. Most people just want to plot around in their garden and use chainsaws and that sort of thing. Very happy to get down and dirty again, doing those things, absolutely not needing to live a life of, you know, being served and, you know, kicking back and let someone else do everything. It's actually the opposite. You know, I had an amazing guy called Pete, who was a sergeant major in the Honourable Artillery Company where I served for a couple of years. And when he finished, he was a finance guru, absolutely diamond of a man, you know, really detailed. And when he left, he went to work in Waitrose, stacking shelves. Yeah. And he's still working Waitrose. He works here in Waitrose in Bath. I see him all the time. He's one of the most peaceful, calm, contented men. Yeah. He's an absolute diamond to see when you see him in there. He's so welcoming and lovely. And he's happy as Larry. And yet
I think there is that piece. There is that piece, isn't there, that comes from an appreciation of life, and the things that matter.
Yeah,
the things that really matter, and like that human connection, you know, the relationships that you have with people. And certainly when I've watched the program, they the incredible, and you talked about it right at the beginning, Chris, that incredible kindness of human beings in individual spaces that, you know, maybe not have much but are willing to share it, would go out of their way to support somebody, to be helpful, just humankind. There is still a lot of humankind about, I think.
Varies though, doesn't it? You know, on my recent trip to India, and Leah and I have been to India before, but you know, lots of people who have very little. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of people who've done really well in India, but lots of people have very little. And then on balance, I would say my experience was they're a lot happier than the average person here, who's struggling under the weight of mortgages or whatever else. And you know, there's some takeaways from that, because why are they so happy? Is it because they're not burdened, or is it something else? You know, is it faith? And I'm not a religious person. What is it that they're doing every day that makes them, or are they actually just more accepting of their lot? That doesn't mean they don't strive for better, but they're more accepting of their lot rather than, oh, I've got to have that. I've got to have the next thing. You know, I've got to have more. And I think we're a bit guilty of that. I've been guilty of that in the past, and I'm desperately trying to stop being like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be a whole other, we could have, because I went to India, as you know, we could have a whole Renny show about the joys of traveling in India, couldn't we?
It's not all joy, as you know. You know, we met on a train journey, and I'll tell you, the 5 very long train journeys we did, 5 planes, 2 trains, and a couple of cars. Blimey, we had some savage train journeys. You know.
Our train was actually cancelled, so we didn't get on a train at all because it didn't ever materialise. So it evaporated into thin air. So our train journey wasn't, which obviously happens on the commute as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe that was a blessing.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah, you know, and we did some long drives, but the people, there was so much to love about India. It was a dream come true for me. It was, and I have been before, and I lived in Bangladesh, so it wasn't in some ways it wasn't a completely novel experience, but it was, if you know what I mean. It was fabulous.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I'm just mindful of our time. And Chris, it'd be great if you could tell people, our wonderful listeners, all our audience, where they can find you, how they get in touch if they want to work with you. How do they connect with you?
The easiest way is via LinkedIn. You can find me, Christopher Allen, on LinkedIn. And we have our own website as well, which is ridiculously long, MONTROC Consulting .com, MONTROC, MONTROC. It's actually I discovered it's a town in France, MONTROC, which I didn't know when we started the company. We gave the company that name for 2 reasons. One, because we do change, and we're like, you know, from between a rock and a hard place, it's like 2 peaks. It's like, that's quite good.
Oh yeah.
You know, a mountain and a rock. But actually it came because we were like, oh, what should we call the company? I don't know. We were working it out. And my 4th child had just been born round about then. And I've got 2 girls and 2 boys, and the 2 boys are Monty and Rocco, and I kept getting the names, and I kept saying Montroc, and Leah said, why don't you just call it Montroc? So
Love it.
So we called it MONTROC. Yeah, which is quite good. And then when the girls got a bit older, they're like, "Why haven't we got a company named after us?" Like, well,
Oh,
your
there
name's
you
a
go.
bit more
That's the
tricky.
next one. You say not yet.
Yeah. We've tried every combination. It doesn't work. So, but yeah, no. So LinkedIn is the best one. You can find both the company and me on our website. Thanks.
Excellent. And I will make sure that's all in the show notes for everyone.
It's been an absolute joy. I can't believe we've come to the end of our show already. It's gone like that, hasn't it? Time always flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Indeed.
It's been an absolute joy, Chris. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and sharing your stories. I know there's loads more, so maybe you'll come back another time.
Thanks. I really appreciate you asking me, and I'll think about another question for you as well.
Yeah,
excellent. We shall look forward to that one then, I think. So it just remains for me to thank everyone for listening. Thanks to Chris for joining us, and don't forget we'll be back in 2 weeks for the next show. We've got some more exciting guests in the pipeline, so watch this space to find out more about that. But join us again in 2 weeks for your fortnightly dose of honesty and positivity. Thank you for being here. Bye.
Bye both. Thanks very much.
Take care. Be inspired, be brilliant. Until next time.